one of the things I get asked the most about is a friction fire. Everybody wants to know about that. People often confuse me with a survivalist or something, but I'm really an adventurer. And these are skills that you need to be able to go out into the woods for extended periods of time. That's all that is something to help you facilitate going into the woods and being able to sustain yourself if necessary. So, friction fire, I'm going to go over how to make a bow drill set, or how to use a bow drill set. I'll make another video in detail if you guys want to see it on how to make it, but I'll go over the components and all the different parts. So, first thing we got here is your hearth board. Your hearth board's the base of it, where your spindle goes into. You can see right here in mine I have a notch cut out. You'll notice that the notch is actually kind of more like a V than a straight line into it. That's so that the dust, as you start going back and forth with your spindle, will have a place to pool and it'll start heating up. Next part right here I got is a spindle. Now the spindle actually looks more like a pencil with an eraser at the end, a rounded eraser. When you start out it's a little bit flatter, and as you use it more often it gets more rounded. The end of it's pointy. Now that's important because you want the least amount of friction on your bearing block and the most amount of friction down on the other end. Next part I got here is the bearing block. Now this bearing block right here is made of cedar, and I put a penny in it. You can see the penny here. I just took the penny and bashed it into a groove I cut out into it. And the only reason I've done that's for, one, longevity of the bearing block. I don't have to keep making a new bearing block every time I make a bow drill set, but also it's a little bit smoother and helps it turn a little bit better and creates less friction up in the bearing block, so that way I don't have smoke coming from my hand while I'm trying to make a bow drill, or trying to make a bow drill fire. This little piece right here, this is a piece of leather I use to strop knives with. I always carry a little bit of leather with me in my kit because I'm always sharpening my knife. So I turned it into what you call an Eskimo pan. They use it to catch the ember. You can use leaf, bark, whatever you can find out there. It don't have to be this. It can be anything flat that's not going to burn through. Now the components of it, you're going to need, a foundation. And the foundation is one of the most important parts of the whole thing. A good bird's nest, breaking your sticks up into different sizes, so size of pencil, a little thinner, and you're working your way up to your kindling size, so that way you can get your fire going correctly. Now your bird's nest, this particular one I'm going to be using, I used tulip poplar bark. Tulip poplar here in Appalachia is one of the ideal trees to be using for a friction fire, because you can take every part of that tree to make your fire. You don't need to go find any other parts. Cedar works great, or cottonwood, basswood, etc. But tulip poplar has everything you need in it. So I used this bark right here from the tulip poplar tree from the very bow drill set that I made to make this bird's nest. Let's talk about the tulip poplar. So tulip poplar in Tennessee, where we're at, is one of the most abundant trees around here. You can find it anywhere. You can identify it by, one, it's a very, very straight tree. The limbs are mostly up toward the top. The base of it's fairly limbless. As the tree grows, the limbs fall off and they gather at the base of the tree, and that's generally what you'll use to make your bow drill set out of. To identify it, the leaf has a split on it. I was taught two lips pointing out on it, and also the silver in between the grooves of the bark's another identifier. But generally, if you look around and you see trees that are almost perfectly straight, that's a good indicator that's probably going to be it. Now, type of wood's not absolute necessity. You can use almost any type of wood, but you're looking for a consistency. The wood itself should be soft enough where you can take your fingernail and push and make an indentation into it, and it should be a good candidate. If it's green, wet, or if you can pull it apart, if it's so punky it falls apart, it's not going to be a good candidate. So let's take a look at this, see how we get this bow drill to work. Now you can see I put my foot pretty close to the where I burned in already on previous times doing this. You want it about as close as you can get it to it without affecting the dust that's going to pull around this right here. So that's about a good distance from it. And you can see I've already loaded my spindle. When you load it, you're going to want to go on top of the 550 cord, or whatever cordage you're using, and point it towards you, just like that. Now another important thing is the way that my position is. You can see I got my forearm against my knee. This is vital to be able to keep it steady. If you try to keep it out here in free space, it'll wobble. So you got to lock in on your knee. I'm going to start out fairly slow, and all I'm doing right now is trying to get my form right and start feeling that notch. You don't want to start right out the gate going fast and hard. A couple things I'm trying to do is keep my bow parallel, try not to rock, and keeping just enough pressure downward. That squeaking sound's a good sound. Now when you start seeing smoke, that ain't your cue to stop. Start putting more pressure downward, start going a little faster. You get a good, nice, bellowing white cloud. There's probably good. Now I can see I've got a cherry form smoking. I'm going to use my knife to keep it from coming up with it. Now you can see it's smoking right now. Now this will go for 2 or 3 minutes. There's no major rush to get it in the bird's nest. In fact, you want to try to give it a little bit of oxygen so the cherry will form a little bit better. Now, you can see this actually looks like a bird's nest. One of the techniques to get it to go is put this on top of your Eskimo pan, flip it over. There you go. So that's pretty much it for the bow drill. As you saw, it didn't take too long. It only took me a couple minutes to get a fire going. Making the bow drill set itself, though, takes a lot longer to do. I happen to have one today, so I didn't go through the whole process with you. If you want to see it, make sure you let me know. If you like what you saw, make sure you subscribe. Leave any comments below, any questions, and we'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.